Hi there. You're watching Reddit Confessions, a place where silence breaks and the truth comes out. Let's get into it. I wasn't supposed to hear it. I wasn't supposed to be there. Not yet. But traffic was light. No red lights. No reason to stall. So I got there early, exactly 58 minutes before I was meant to. And I didn't text her. I didn't honk. I didn't even get out of the car. I just sat there, quiet, unseen. And that's when I heard her laugh. The kind of laugh that doesn't belong to someone waiting for their husband to pick them up. The kind that echoes a little too loud, like it needs attention. I cracked the window. That's all it took. They were standing in the driveway. Not close enough to be touching, but close enough that their shadows almost kissed. A guy I didn't know, tall, clean haircut, that smug kind of posture that you just know hides something, and my wife, Imelda. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And then she said it. He thinks I'm just drunk and flirty. He doesn't know anything. She giggled. He chuckled. She kept going. He's probably home right now, folding socks or organizing tea. And I'm here. With you. I blinked. Folded socks? She meant me. That's how she sees me? The guy said something I couldn't hear. She smacked him playfully, and he grabbed her wrist. She let him hold it. She didn't pull away. I couldn't feel my hands anymore. She looked over her shoulder, almost like she sensed something. But I was hidden behind another parked car. Engine off, just a figure in the shadows. And then she leaned into him. No kiss, not yet. But the pause before it? It was longer than any kiss I'd gotten in months. The kind of pause where you already know what's about to happen. The kind of pause that burns. I didn't stay to see more. I reversed quietly down the street and parked on the corner. I waited until 11:30, like she asked. She got in the car, smiled, said, "Thanks, babe," and reached for my hand. Her fingers were warm. I wanted to ask who she was with. I wanted to ask what I heard. I wanted to scream, "Am I really that invisible?" But I said none of that. I drove her home, made a joke about traffic, and when she kissed me goodnight, I let her believe I didn't already know she wasn't coming home alone in her heart. She might never know I heard. But now I hear everything differently. The next morning felt like any other Sunday. That's the sick part. She was in the kitchen, humming, frying eggs like she hadn't casually shattered something sacred the night before. Pixel, our shaky little greyhound, was curled up in the sunbeam by the window. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I dreamed it all. The driveway, the voice, the wrist grab. Maybe my mind made it up. Maybe I just needed sleep. But then I saw her phone. It was sitting unattended on the counter, screen face up, lighting up with a notification. Last night was. The rest was hidden. I reached for it. Not to invade, I told myself. Just to confirm. Just to quiet the part of me that couldn't sit still anymore. It was locked. Of course. Imelda had changed her passcode a few months ago. Said she did it after a phishing attempt at work. I didn't question it back then. I even complimented her on being cautious. I shouldn't have. I watched her walk out of the kitchen, plate in hand, moving toward the living room. I had maybe 30 seconds. My fingers hovered over the screen. I tried her birthday. My birthday. Our dog's name. No luck. But then I paused, took a breath and typed Xavier 123. Unlocked. I don't know why I thought of him. Maybe because that name had been coming up more lately. Maybe because he was the one throwing the party. Or maybe because deep down I already knew. My hands shook. I wasn't built for this. I'm not a snooper. I'm the guy who closes pop-ups instead of reading headlines. But that morning I scrolled. And what I found wasn't just betrayal. It was something else, colder, sharper. There was a message thread at the top. No name, just a saved number. I clicked. The conversation was playful at first. Months old. Jokes, memes, flirtations. Then they got bolder. Comments about our house. About me. He thinks you're just networking, huh? He still folds laundry like it's a love letter. And then, last night was risky. I loved it. Followed by a photo. Blurry. Taken from behind the curtains of our guest room. 2 wine glasses. A shadow. her shoulder bare. I locked the phone, set it back exactly where it was, and walked out of the kitchen before she noticed I wasn't breathing right. My chest felt tight. My skin was buzzing. She smiled at me from the couch. "Want eggs?" I shook my head, said I wasn't hungry. My voice cracked a little. She didn't notice. The worst part wasn't what I read. It wasn't the fact that she'd been seeing someone else, maybe multiple people. It wasn't even the fact that she was good at hiding it. It was that I could see it now, how normal she looked, like she'd grown so comfortable lying to me. She didn't even need to try anymore. Like she could live 2 lives and fry eggs with a smile. That broke something in me. I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and just sat on the closed toilet lid for 20 minutes, staring at the floor. Not crying, not yelling, just existing. A background character in my own story. Again. But something had changed. Not in her. In me. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I didn't even know what I'd say. But I knew I needed to know more. And I had no idea how far this went. That's when I remembered something else. Something she'd forgotten. The tablet we use for streaming? It auto-syncs with her cloud. And what I found on there. That's where this story takes a sharp turn. I didn't even plan to open the tablet that day. It was just sitting there on the coffee table, half buried under a throw blanket, looking harmless. But after what I saw on her phone, after the photo and those disgusting messages, my head wouldn't stop spinning. My mind kept looping back to every little excuse she'd ever made, every unexplained night out, every awkward smile when I asked too many questions. It all felt different now, like someone had taken a highlighter to memories I thought I trusted. We bought that tablet for movie nights. At least that's what we told ourselves. In truth, she used it way more than I ever did, mostly for Pinterest, YouTube, and work stuff. But what I had forgotten, and what she clearly hadn't realized, was that she'd logged into her entire Google account on it months ago and never signed out. Out of some desperate instinct, I opened it and swiped through to her Google Photos, just to check. And just like that, the dam broke. There were dozens of pictures. Not screenshots, not innocent selfies, actual photographs she'd taken, clearly unaware that they were uploading to her cloud. Her and him, sometimes blurry, sometimes with his face hidden, but unmistakably intimate. A hand on her bare knee, her smirking into the camera while he slept behind her. One photo had her in our bathroom, wrapped in my towel, lips bitten, captioned, "You left too early, winking face." I thought I might throw up. I kept scrolling. The deeper I went, the worse it got. There were voice notes, too, backed up automatically. I didn't even know Google Photos did that. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. One of them was her whispering into the mic. He asked if we're serious. I told him, "You're just comfortable." A phase. I don't even think he'd notice if I vanished. Comfortable? A phase? I was the guy who brought her soup when she was sick, who made sure her mom got flowers on her birthday, who built the IKEA shelves she wanted and never once complained about how many pillows were on our bed. And now I was a phase? At some point, I realized I'd been sitting on the living room floor for over an hour, the tablet screen still glowing in my lap. Pixel had trotted over and curled beside me like he could sense the shift in the air. I didn't cry. Still no tears. It was something worse, a kind of numb pressure in my chest. Like everything I believed about my life had been quietly erased while I wasn't looking. She walked in not long after, hair wet from a shower, wearing the robe I bought her last Christmas. She didn't even glance at me as she passed. Just said, "Do you mind taking out the trash later?" And went into the bedroom. I stared at the tablet in my hands. I stared at her words, her photos, her laugh frozen in pixels with someone else's hands on her. Trash. She wanted me to take out the trash. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a plan. But I knew one thing. I couldn't go on pretending I didn't know. Something had shifted, and there was no way to shove it back into the dark. Still, I couldn't explode. That's not who I am. I don't yell. I don't slam doors. I just unravel quietly, like a sweater snagged on a nail. But that night, I started something I never thought I would. A private folder on my computer. I started taking screenshots, saving photos, notes, Logs. Just in case. Not for revenge. I didn't even know what I was building. Maybe it was just a museum for the ghost of my marriage. Or maybe part of me knew something was coming. Because the next night, when she said she was going out again, just to see some girlfriends, I smiled, nodded, and waited for her to leave. Then I followed her. And what I saw that night didn't just confirm everything. It revealed something I never would have imagined in a million years. I told her to have fun. That's what I said as she grabbed her keys and kissed me on the forehead. Like a mother might pat a child before sending him off to bed. She said she was meeting Nina and Sasha for drinks. I nodded, even smiled a little, and then watched through the blinds as she got into her car, adjusted her hair in the mirror, and drove off into the fading orange of early evening. The moment her taillights vanished, I grabbed my jacket, slipped into my car, and followed at a distance. I'd never done anything like that before. I felt ridiculous, like some desperate husband in a bad TV movie. But after what I found on her phone, and what I'd seen on the tablet, I needed to know everything. Not guesses, not assumptions. Proof. She drove casually, no signs of rush or guilt. She even stopped for gas. I parked across the street behind a row of bushes and watched her laugh with the guy at the pump next to her. That laugh again, the one that never belonged to me. Then she took a left out of the gas station. A few more turns. We were now out of our neighborhood, near the east side, where the bars sit shoulder to shoulder and parking's impossible unless you're early or lucky. She pulled into a small alley and parked behind a building that didn't look like a bar. No lights, no signs. Just a black door and 2 cameras hanging from crooked metal arms above it. I parked half a block down and waited. She didn't go in right away. She sat in the car for a minute, texting. I watched the screen light up her face. Then, without warning, another car pulled up beside her. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't the guy from the photos. It was someone else. Different build. Older. Broad shoulders. Dark jacket. He stepped out, looked around, then opened her door. She stepped out, smiled, and kissed him. On the lips. Not a peck. Not a nervous glance around kind of kiss. A slow, deliberate, practiced kiss. Then he grabbed her hand, and they both disappeared behind the unmarked door. I didn't follow them. Not yet. I just sat there, hands trembling on the wheel, mind scrambling to keep up. This wasn't just an affair. It wasn't even the same affair. This was something else. And then it hit me. The second guy. The building. The secrecy. This wasn't an impulsive fling. This was something organized. Coordinated. Maintained. I cracked the door of my car, trying to get air. My body felt hot. My ears were ringing. A million thoughts raced through my head, each one worse than the last. I grabbed my phone and started taking notes. Time. Location. Descriptions. I took a photo of the alley. I didn't know why. Maybe for later. Maybe because I felt like I was unraveling and needed something concrete to hold on to. 15 minutes passed. Then something even stranger happened. Another car pulled into the alley. A beat-up red Honda. A woman stepped out. Mid-30s. Long coat. She wasn't dressed for drinks. She had that look in her eyes, the kind I had in mine. She walked up to the black door but didn't knock. She stood there with her arms crossed, just watching. Waiting. Was she part of it? Was she another one? But then she turned and for a split second our eyes met. She narrowed hers, as if she recognized something in me. And then, out of nowhere, she started walking toward my car. Panicked. Threw it in reverse. Drove off before she could get too close. My heart pounded so hard I could barely see straight. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know what any of this was. But something told me that what I stumbled into was bigger than just infidelity. And I had no idea how far it went. When I got home, Imelda was already in bed. She said she had a headache from the drinks, and that Nina ordered the worst cocktail in the city. I nodded and pretended to listen. She kissed me goodnight and rolled over. That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about the building, the black door, the man I didn't recognize, the second woman, and that kiss, that familiarity between them. Whatever this was, it wasn't just cheating. It was a pattern, a system, a secret life I was never meant to glimpse. And I had just peeled back the first layer. I didn't go back the next day, or the day after. I told myself it was because I was giving her space, or that I was gathering strength, or that I just needed time to think. But the truth was simpler than that. I was scared. Not just of what I might find, but of how much I already knew. Because once you know, you can't unknow. And I think a small part of me still wanted to go back to believing I was just paranoid. That I had misread everything. That maybe, somehow, I could still unsee that kiss. But by day 3, I couldn't pretend anymore. Imelda told me she was going to yoga. Even wore her favorite leggings, the ones she never actually did yoga in. She left her mat in the hallway, kissed me goodbye, and walked out without looking back. I watched her through the curtain. She got into her car, typed something into her GPS, and didn't drive anywhere near the yoga studio. I waited 15 minutes this time, just to be safe. Then I got in my own car, retraced the path to that same strange alley, and parked at the same spot. It was a little after 6 p.m., and the street was quiet except for a few flickering lights and the soft hum of a nearby HVAC unit. I walked up to the door. Black paint, slightly chipped. No sign. No buzzer. Just a single security camera above me, tilted slightly downward, like a mechanical eye daring me to knock. And so I did. Twice. Nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. Then I noticed something strange. A keypad? Small and almost invisible, tucked just beneath the frame. I wouldn't have seen it if the sun hadn't hit it just right. I stared at it, heart pounding. What kind of building needs a code but has no markings? I turned to leave, but just then, the door clicked open from the inside. A man stepped out. Same broad-shouldered guy I'd seen with Imelda 3 nights earlier. He didn't look surprised to see me. In fact, he looked expectant. "You here for Ella?" he asked, leaning casually on the doorframe. I froze. I think I'm in the wrong place." He tilted his head, smirked. "Are you?" He let the door shut behind him and stepped forward. He was taller than I expected, confident in that eerie, relaxed way that makes your skin crawl. "You followed her, didn't you?" I didn't respond. "Don't worry," he said. "You're not the first husband. You probably won't be the last." The words hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. He stepped back toward the door and gave it a casual push open again, revealing a dim hallway inside, lined with soft lighting and faint music playing from somewhere deeper in. "I'd offer you a tour," he added, "but you're not really her type." Then he shut the door. Just like that. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the closed door, unsure if what just happened had actually happened. I felt like I was dreaming. My fingers were ice cold. My mouth was dry. There was something about the way he said it, "not the first husband." Like there was an entire history I didn't know about. A world behind that door where people like me didn't belong. I got back in the car, slammed the door harder than I should have, and gripped the steering wheel like I wanted to bend it in half. That was the first time in years I felt something close to rage. It was unfamiliar, ugly, but it was the only thing keeping me from collapsing. Back home, Imelda returned 2 hours later with a smoothie in her hand and a soft towel around her neck. "Yoga was intense," she said, setting the keys down. I nodded. "You look like you sweat out all your toxins." She laughed. "That's the goal, right?" I stared at her, wondering how many versions of her existed behind the mask. How many lies were stitched together into the woman standing in front of me. Was I ever real to her? Or was I just a prop? A placeholder for the life she thought she was supposed to have before finding whatever it was behind that black door? I didn't sleep again that night. I just kept hearing his voice. "You're not the first." What did that even mean? By morning, I knew what I had to do. Couldn't knock again. Couldn't confront him. Couldn't confront her, not yet. But I could go deeper. I remembered the woman in the long coat. The one who stared at me and started walking toward my car. She wasn't part of that place. I felt it, and I needed to find her. I didn't know where to begin. I didn't have a name, just an image burned into my memory. A woman in a long gray coat, her eyes sharp and calculating. The way she stared at me like she recognized something I didn't know I was giving away. That split-second eye contact haunted me more than the photos on the tablet or the kiss in the alley. Because there was something in her expression that wasn't pity, or confusion, or even curiosity. It was warning. So I went back. Not to the black door. Not yet. But to the coffee shop across the street from the alley. I sat there every night for 4 days, pretending to drink iced coffee while I scanned every passerby through the steamed-up windows. I watched for her coat, her hair, anything that might match the shadow in my head. Felt stupid, desperate, obsessive even. But when your reality's been turned inside out, you cling to any thread that still looks real. On the 5th night, just as I was starting to convince myself I'd imagined her, she walked past the window. Same coat, same stride, same cold precision in her movements. She wasn't headed toward the alley. She was walking in the opposite direction. Eyes locked ahead, earbuds in. I left my drink, stumbled out the door, and jogged to catch up. "Excuse me," I said, breathless. Can I talk to you for a second?" She stopped, turned slowly, and studied me like I was some insect she hadn't decided whether to squash or ignore. "I don't talk to men I don't know," she said. "I saw you outside that place," I replied quickly. "3 nights ago. You walked toward my car. You looked like you knew something. About them. About her." Her eyes narrowed. "You're the husband." The way she said it. Not a husband. The husband. Like I was a character in a play she'd already seen a dozen times. I nodded. "Imelda's husband." She didn't blink. Didn't smile. Didn't offer sympathy. She just looked up and down the street, then motioned to a bench under a flickering street lamp. We sat. Her name was Cora. She spoke plainly, with no dramatic pauses or exaggerated gestures. Just facts. As if the truth had become so heavy for her that dressing it up wasn't worth the energy anymore. "You're not crazy," she began. "You're just late." I didn't understand at first. She explained. The building behind the black door wasn't a club. Not a brothel either. It was something in between. Private network. Not illegal, not officially, but full of loopholes and secrecy and rich clients who paid to keep it out of sight. Some called it a retreat. Others called it a lifestyle collective. But for people like my wife, it was an escape hatch. "She's not cheating," Cora said, crossing her legs. "She's living another life. Entirely. And she's not the only one." She told me she used to be married too, to a man named Everett. Perfect on the surface, polished, generous, well-connected. Until one night she followed him. Same building, same story, but worse. "There are rules in there," she said, voice low. "Contracts, pacts, things that make it harder to leave the deeper you go. It's not about love or affairs. It's about power, submission, reinvention. Some people go there to be gods. Others go to be erased." I was shaking. "You think you're her anchor," Cora continued. "But she cut the rope a long time ago." I asked her why she came back to the building. Why she was watching from the alley. She looked down at her hands. "Because my ex brought someone new inside, and I couldn't stop myself from warning her." She didn't listen. They never do. We sat in silence for a long moment. The night air felt too cold. My skin tingled like I was waking up inside a nightmare that had been disguised as my life for years. Cora pulled something from her coat pocket. A folded napkin. On it, a name and a number. She used to work there. Quietly. She left last year. Said she was willing to talk. But only to people who really want the truth. If you call her, be ready. Once you hear what she knows, you can't pretend anymore. She stood, brushed her coat flat, and walked off into the dark. I sat on that bench with that napkin burning in my hand, terrified to unfold it, because a part of me already knew, deep down, that whatever I was about to discover next wouldn't just end my marriage. It might destroy everything I thought I knew about the woman sleeping under my roof. I sat in my car for almost an hour, just staring at the napkin. Her name was written in tight, elegant handwriting. Celeste D. Below it, a local number. No last name, no title. Just Celeste D. The name alone didn't mean anything to me, but it throbbed in my hand like a secret that had weight. I kept trying to convince myself not to call, that it was a step too far, that maybe I'd gone off the deep end, that this was already too messy to keep digging. But the truth is, I'd already passed the point of no return the second I saw my wife kiss that stranger in the alley. And if I didn't keep going, if I didn't follow this thread all the way down, it would strangle me in my sleep. So I called. The phone rang twice, then a voice cool and sharp. Yes. I stumbled. Is this Celeste? A pause. Depends who's asking. My name is Lyle, I said, voice shaky. Cora gave me your number. She said you used to work at the facility off Melrose. The Black Door. Another pause. I thought she might hang up. Instead, she said, I'm assuming your wife is still active. That word, active, hit me like ice water. Yes, I answered. I think she's involved. I don't really know what it is. Celeste exhaled slowly. No one ever does. Not until it's too late. You free now? Now? If you're calling me, you need more than a phone call. I hesitated. Bring a notepad, she said. Don't record me. I'll meet you at the coffee shop on Langston. 30 minutes. And just like that, she hung up. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. The world outside looked sharper, louder, more surreal. I didn't even go inside my house. I backed out of the driveway and drove straight there. She was already waiting when I arrived. A woman in her early 40s, with dark eyes that looked like they'd once belonged to someone who used to smile a lot but hadn't in years. She wore a deep blue coat and a scarf even though it wasn't that cold. She looked at me like she already knew everything I was about to ask. You brought a notepad? She asked as I sat down. I nodded. She tapped the table. Then write this down. First rule. They don't call it cheating. They call it expansion. Second rule. You'll never fully understand what she's doing unless she lets you. And she won't. She's already decided you're not part of that world. I scribbled everything down, my hand trembling. Celeste sipped her tea and began laying it all out. The building behind the Black Door wasn't one place. It was a rotating collection of curated events, organized by a private members group called Chimera Hollow. Invitation only. No paper trail. Everything done through encrypted platforms, word of mouth, and non-disclosure agreements. It wasn't a brothel, not technically. It wasn't a swingers club either. It was something in between, a community for people who wanted to live double lives without consequence. Every member has a mirror, Celeste explained. Someone who reflects the person they wish they could be. Some call them handlers. Others call them anchors. It's a sick metaphor. Your wife, Imelda, right? She's deep in that system. If she's been going for months, she already has one. A mirror? I asked, confused. Celeste nodded. Someone who watches her, guides her, tempts her, owns part of her. Emotionally, psychologically, sometimes more. My stomach turned. She probably doesn't think she's doing anything wrong, Celeste continued. That's how they train them to think. It's not about sex. Not at first. It's about detachment, reinvention. They teach them to split themselves. The wife at home becomes a costume. The real self lives behind that black door. I wanted to scream, wanted to go home and shake Imelda and ask her who she really was. But I didn't. I kept listening. Celeste leaned in closer. You said Cora sent you, right? Yeah. Then she trusts you. So I will too. She opened her bag and pulled out a flash drive. This isn't legal. You never got it from me. But if you really want to understand how far this goes, plug this into your laptop and look through the archived footage. It's from a failed security dump I intercepted when I walked away. Your wife might be in some of them. If she is, you'll see what kind of person she's become. She slid the drive across the table. I stared at it like it might explode. One last thing, Celeste said, standing up and slinging her coat over one shoulder. If she ever finds out, she won't apologize. She'll flip the narrative. They all do. Be careful. You're not just dealing with infidelity. You're dealing with indoctrination. And then she walked out of the cafe. leaving me alone with a flash drive full of answers, and the creeping feeling that knowing the truth might finally break me for good. I waited until the house was empty. Imelda had gone to a creative workshop, which, at this point, might as well have been code for whatever fantasy life she thought I couldn't see. Pixel sat by my feet, sensing something heavy in the air, ears twitching every time my hand trembled. I plugged in the flash drive Celeste gave me. There was no folder structure, no labels, just time-stamped video files, blurry security footage from hidden corners inside the Black Door facility. At first, it was all too grainy to make sense. People walking through narrow halls, shadows cast by low lights, fragmented conversations muffled by distance. Then I found her, in 3 different clips. One where she walked confidently through a velvet-curtained hallway, laughing with a man who looked nothing like the others I'd seen. One where she was seated on a leather sofa, smiling like she'd won something. And one, the hardest one, where she took off her wedding ring, placed it in a crystal bowl, and whispered something to a group standing in a circle. I couldn't hear the words, but her face, it said enough. She had let go. Fully. Completely. I think a part of me was still hoping to find hesitation in her, doubt, guilt, something. But she had already moved on, and she just forgot to tell me. I didn't get angry. Not anymore. That phase had come and gone. I closed the laptop, took a long breath, and stood in the quiet hum of our home. The photos on the walls felt fake now. The candles on the shelf, the shared mugs in the cabinet, all of it. Curated clutter for a life only one of us was still participating in. But here's the part one didn't expect. I didn't collapse. I didn't spiral. I didn't scream. I stood up. That night, I wrote her a letter. Not a dramatic, tear-stained novel. Just 1 page. Calm. Clear. Honest. I told her I knew everything. That I saw the footage. That I'd spoken to people who knew her better than I ever did. And that I was done being the placeholder in her play. Then I packed a small bag, took Pixel, and left the house. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked away. Not broken, but awake. It's been 2 weeks now. I've moved in with my cousin temporarily. Found a little rhythm in a quieter life. It's strange how something so devastating can open space for air again. For possibility. I've started journaling. Taking long walks. I even signed up for a writing class. And maybe, just maybe, I'll start building a life that doesn't include trying to hold together someone else's illusion. She reached out a few times, but I didn't answer. Not out of spite. Just peace. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop trying to fix what someone else keeps breaking. Thanks for listening to my story. I know this one was a ride, but sometimes life is stranger than fiction. If you've ever uncovered a hidden truth in your relationship, something that completely changed your world, tell us in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you handled it or how you healed. This has been another confession here on Reddit Confessions, where secrets come to light, and sometimes light is exactly what we need. Take care of yourselves, and don't ignore the quiet things that don't feel right. Until next time.